Hola a todos y bienvenidos a otro episodio del Digital Download. Oops. Good afternoon, good morning, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to a new edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live. Now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today we're diving into the transformative world of AI and big data with our special guest, Evangelos Simoudis, a seasoned investor, technologist, and author. Evangelos brings a wealth of experience from the heart of Silicon Valley. Having worked with startups and global corporations across various sectors, he offers a unique perspective on the practical applications and strategic implications of AI. But before we bring Evangelos on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. Adam, do you want to kick us off?
Hi everyone, I'm Adam Gray from DLA Ignite. I'm co-founder and Tim's business partner. And AI, a very topical conversation to be having and something which is on everybody's radar, either because they're wowed by the possibilities that it presents or terrified by the possibilities that it presents. So either way, it should be an entertaining show.
Definitely looking forward to it. Tim.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. I think that AI has provides us with many opportunities as much as it provides us with many challenges. And I'm famous for the fact that I wrote the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Thank you, Tim. And myself, Bertrand Godillot, I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co., a very proud DLA Ignite partner. As I said this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Evangelos. While many companies are eager to jump on the AI bandwagon, Evangelos argues that most are approaching it the wrong way. He'll shed the light on the common pitfalls and misconceptions surrounding AI adoption and offer insights on how businesses can truly leverage the potential. Let's bring him on. Evangelos, good morning and welcome. And we know it's an early wake-up call for you today.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show, and it's good to see all of you, and I look forward to this conversation.
Great. Evangelos, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to where you are today.
Great. I'm originally from Greece. I came to the US in 78 to study and got involved with AI in 82 and have been in various roles involved in that field since that time. For the past 10 years, I ran a firm called Synapse Partners, and we do two things. We invest in early stage startups that develop AI applications for the enterprise. I've been a venture investor since roughly 2000. And the second thing we do is we advise corporations and governments on the use of AI. In the process of doing both of these things, we develop some of our own IP. AI IP. Sometimes we spin it out in separate companies. Others we use it and license it to our corporate customers. I've written 3 books in my quote-unquote spare time because I've been fascinated with the topic of how AI can play a role in mobility, both vehicles and other forms of ground mobility. Continue to have the bruises from working in this area.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. So, Evangelos, let's start with a foundational question. What are the biggest mistakes companies make when implementing AI?
So I've broken this down into 5 different categories of problems. The first one, which I've seen over and over, is that in most companies, and I've seen it not in the current AI wave that we're going through, but even in the previous ones that I participated since the 80s. We tend to look at it as a technology first, as opposed to problem first, right? Or what is the issue that I'm trying to address? And we can talk about that. But so the first and foremost is that we're looking technology first versus problem first. Then other problems involve culture. A lot of companies want to introduce AI, they want to adopt AI, they don't have the right employee culture, they don't have the right overall corporate culture for it. There are on the technology side, right now and for the past several years, AI has been data-driven. And for many corporations, they want to apply artificial intelligence, but their data is not in the right shape. And believe it or not, actually, this is one of the most a difficult issue to speak to CEOs and say that after all of these years that they have been working on their data, their corporations have been working on their data is still not in the right shape to be used by the current AI approaches. There are talent issues. There is a war of talent out there, and this is very much both for the companies that create the technology, but more importantly for the corporations and the governments that want to adopt it. And then finally, particularly in the generative AI wave that we're going through right now, the cost of implementing and deploying these solutions is not yet fully appreciated. I think partially because we have a number of chatbots now that we can use for free. But when you try to bring this to the enterprise and deploy that type of technology, the costs are significant. So to me, those are the top issues. And if I could kind of wrap up this initial question with a couple of examples, kind of one good, one not so good. So on the good side, if you look at a company like Klarna, which is a Swedish financial services company, they started applying generative AI because they said, we want to reduce the cost of providing customer support and improve the quality of our customer support. And they're famous for letting all of their customer support employees, I think they laid off about 700 customer support employees in the process of bringing in. But before they took that step, they defined their problem very, very well, and they started to understand what the AI technology can bring to address this problem. On the flip side, I would say if you look at what many automakers, the approach that many automakers have taken with regards to autonomous vehicles. Again, autonomous vehicles are great consumers and users of AI at various levels. But in most cases, the automakers took a technology-first approach without really understanding: are we ready to do it? Do our customers want it? Can our employees deliver? And as a result of that, we have billions of dollars being wasted and still a failed effort. So this is, to me, these two examples are probably front and center of the issues that I was talking about.
So if we think about that Swedish financial services company, they laid off staff, a large number of the customer support staff, because they were looking for increased efficiency, and they were looking for so when we say increased efficiency, we mean reduced costs, I assume, and they wanted a higher quality of service. Now, given that I'm a consumer of your product, you're the financial services company, I'm a consumer of your product, I phone up because I have a question or a concern. You know, my pension seems to have gone down this year. What's going on? Can you explain this to me, please? And actually, part of what I want is I want reassurance. And reassurance will not be created by me engaging with a chatbot, no matter how clever the chatbot is. It'll be given by me engaging with you as another human being. And I think that there's, no, not, I don't think, is there an existential crisis looming? So a financial services company has a series of algorithms and bots that work out where it should invest its money, where it should place its bets to drive the best possible return. And the bit that it has been doing...
Sorry.
This is why I said, understanding the company's needs and then bringing in the technology. So in this particular case, Klarna, which is the name of this company, is a financial services company that is involved in the area of what's called buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
So and they have a specific type of clientele. And this is important because when we think about understanding, putting the problem first, and understanding the capabilities of the organization, you need to bring together kind of like three components, if you will. You need to bring together the organizational needs. In this case, I want to provide better customer support. I want to and how you define that customer support. So in their case, and based on what they understood of their customers, which is the second component, speed of the response is important, and accuracy of the response is important, right? But because they have a specific type of customers, so as I said, the second component is what are the customer expectations, okay? And in their particular case, as it turns out, they understood their customer base very well. Their customer base was ready for something like this. The third component, by the way, is the organizational capabilities. And they found that they have both the technology expertise and the business process expertise to both implement and impact such a solution, bring such a solution to their customers. And I think that a lot of times corporations just think of the technology side. They ignore, most times actually, they ignore even the capabilities of their customers, right? In other words, what their customer is able to absorb and what the customer is willing to live with. But it is, even though I talk about them as a financial services company, it will not be the same as, say, going to a Goldman Sachs, which also is applying a lot of AI, but is using a very different approach to how that AI technology, to which problem it is used to address, and how it is used when customers are involved.
So AI in this instance, is well suited to delivering simple answers to simple questions for high volume, low value transactions.
The Klarna case study is very interesting because what Klarna did was that the CEO basically stood up and said, "I don't need any people." So he sacked all the people, and within 60 days, he reinstated the people because of the fact that he realized that AI can't do all of the jobs and that humans are invaluable. And that was the conclusion that they basically got within 60 days of sacking all the people with AI.
Well, I will also push back, though, and say that I believe that, and this is not AI can solve difficult problems, provided that you're doing the right mapping between problem and the capabilities of the technology. So I think it's unfair to say that it's only used for simple problems. So if I look at the first AI spring, whatever you will call it, I participated in was back in the 80s. And at that time, we had rule-based expert systems, which were extremely good at for diagnosis problems. And people corporations who did that kind of mapping, who identify the right diagnosis problem and then apply the technology to address it, did extremely well. However, there were a number of other companies that were trying to shoehorn a problem to technology that was not good for, right? And in those cases, we had failures. Later on, in the early 90s, when we had the second AI, another AI spring, when neural networks started being introduced, so-called statistical AI started being introduced, the process industry had a very successful solutions because these technologies were extremely good at addressing nonlinear regression kind of problems. It wasn't other companies that tried to apply, or other industries that tried to apply the same technology on different type of problems didn't do as well, right? So this is why I keep saying that it is important to understand what problem you're trying to solve, what are the capabilities of your organization, what are the capabilities, and then start bringing the technology to address it. Every step of every time we have an AI spring, we're making important advances, and the advances that we're making these days with generative AI are extremely important, and we're finding that we're able to address a wider spectrum of problems. But that does not mean that every problem will be solved with the same technology.
You mentioned in the 5 areas, Evangelos, you mentioned the fact that most of the time data are not in the right shape. Obviously, we talk initially about the tech first versus the problem first, and I think it's pretty clear what how you should approach this from the problem perspective before you get into finding the right tech. And there is obviously the data aspect that you mentioned. I'd love to cover the talent one just after this, but what are your common, I would say, discovery, or basically the common landscape that you're faced with your customers on that data front?
So I feel that we have to educate the customer that even though they have spent a lot of time to get their data ready for business intelligence and maybe even for discriminative AI, when they try to apply generative AI, which is at the core of the current AI wave, AI spring, the data needs to be it needs to be labeled differently. It needs to be in a different shape. Textual data takes a lot bigger role, and that is not always appreciated. The point I was trying to make is that this is not always appreciated, because the CEO will say, well, but I've spent so many million with these firms to get my data ready, and trying to convince them that there's a difference between putting everything in a data warehouse so that you can run a report versus using the data to be able to summarize your documents, for example. It's a very we have one of our portfolio companies is working in the materials space, and they're getting a lot of bill of material documents with schematics and text, and all of that needs to be properly labeled if it is to be taken in advantage by a generative AI system. which is very different than if I wanted to create, for example, a classification model, which again may be a lot easier to create than to build something using for example, build a system that will provide accurate customer support to a range of customers.
Okay. So we talked about. You also talked about culture. I'm quite interested in this one. You said you need to have a specific culture. How would you describe that culture?
Well, I mean, look, we're talking right now about systems that are becoming increasingly autonomous, and I think they can range from being assistants to performing tasks fully autonomously. So let's take again an automotive assembly line. I may have a robotic system that can act as an adaptive robotic system that can act as an assistant to me, right? You have, I'm sure you read about Tesla's Optimus humanoid robots. Other companies are doing things like that. The culture in the company needs to be able to be such that they can collaborate. They are willing to collaborate with such an entity. We're seeing generative AI systems that are becoming extremely good at programming. And you need to be able to have a culture of people both willing to use such systems, but more importantly, and as we saw in one of the financial services companies we worked with, they need to be aware that these systems are not flawless, and to have the culture to always question the quality of the answers that they're getting, and being able to either correct it. And correction could mean to improving the system, but also making sure that whether it is quality of code, whether it is quality of an answer, that they do not go to the wrong people. So that to me defines the culture of that I'm talking, the AI culture that I'm talking about. I don't want to. I mean, I'm sure we will see examples of companies where this type of technology may be sabotaged because there is employee resistance. Okay, I don't want to go there, but I think even if we were to take the best case scenario where employees recognize that there is help here, they will be able to incorporate it productively into their work. I'll tell you one of the problems that we're seeing, and we saw it particularly in the earlier phases of this generative AI wave. People started using these free chatbots at home, okay? And they were finding that they could do interesting tasks for their home environment using these tools. Create a recipe to do X. Give me an itinerary for vacation in Venice, you know. And then they will go to their company and they think that they could do with the same ease, they could use the same tool to do something that is very specific to their company. Now, if I do a recipe and rather than putting 3 teaspoons of olive oil, I put 4, no big deal, right? If I try to do the same thing in a biotech company, there might be a lot of problems that are created. There are definitely advantages for having this consumerization of AI. This is not something that we had in the previous AI sprints, for example. In fact, I was saying to a corporate CEO recently that the last time that I saw something like this was I used to run IBM's AI division in the 90s, and I remember visiting customers and they will, at that time, AOL Mail was just being introduced from mid-90s. And they would say, well, my employee came in and they told me I have this email at home that allows me to communicate with my mother or whoever, very easily. Why can't I have the same kind of email at work, right? And I think we're seeing something similar right now with AI, particularly with generative AI, where employees use it at home. And they say, well, this is really fantastic. I mean, I can ask you to write a message to my son, and it does it immediately. And it's pretty good, actually, right? Why can't I use it to summarize my policy document at work? And that's where the problems start occurring, because writing something that has the seal of a corporation is very different than writing an email that has the seal of your household. But again, these to me are at the heart of the culture issue that I was talking about.
I think you're right. I mean, we all have seen its situations. I mean, the classic one was bring your own device, which is when I was at work, the company provided me with a mobile phone, and then Blackberries came along, and I said, I don't want a company mobile phone, I want a BlackBerry. And they said, well, you can't use a BlackBerry because the email system is different. And we've had exactly the same, haven't we? Which is where we're all able to use AI systems. We've got access to them for free. But we come to work and immediately put confidential information into a public LLM, and then it's available to everybody.
Right. So I think famous examples of this are relating to the so-called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, that is used to fine-tune these large language models. And a lot of times employees, especially earlier in the day, will expose this kind of documents with proprietary information in an effort to fine-tune a model and create risks for their corporation. By the way, when I was talking earlier about costs, these are some of. I mean, again, we'll talk about risks and culture. There are huge costs associated with how do I fine-tune a model in order to make it productive for my use case, right? So now I've identified the problem. I know that this type of technology will be appropriate for solving the problem. Now I have to worry about, how much is this going to cost? And again, there's deception. When I use it at home and it's free, I don't think about, well, what will it cost if I were to take 1 million documents and try to push them through so that I can then generate whatever answers I want to be generating to my millions of customers out there. That's something that is just now starting to dawn on corporations.
But I mean, a lot of people have been using it. They've created their own internal ones. Some of the leading edge companies have created their own LLMs to use, and they're also using it as a way of accessing knowledge bases, aren't they? So, so if you want to get, in the past, you used to have to go as an employee. I'd have to go to some intranet and search for something and not be able to find it. And now you're actually able to go to the internal LLM and just basically put the question in, and it does the searching for you. So it saves so much time.
It does. And again, I will say the following. First of all, I think how to use, or what is the impact of chatbots on the search workflows that we have created is going to be a very interesting disruption. And I'm very certain Google and other companies that make their living primarily from search are spending long hours trying to think of what this is going to be. On the flip side, and now we have a number of these foundation models with their associated chatbots. we need particularly again, since we continue to talk about corporate environments, employees need to be trained to not to confuse eloquence with accuracy. We use 3 or 4 different chatbots in our own advisory work, and we have a lot of problem, and we use the paid versions, by the way, not the free versions, which are supposedly better, more accurate. But we constantly find problems with the results that they return. And if you again, as I said, everything is presented in such an eloquent way that it's very easy to say, "Oh, this must be right if it's written like this," but it's not always the case. And again, having the ability and having the desire to check on the quality of the answer is an important criterion here for the use in the corporation.
We had a guy on here talking about AI who said that his daughter had come home with this maths problem. And she said, it's really easy that you just put it into ChatGPT and it spits out the answer. The teacher knew that it spat out the wrong answer. And so we then had this discussion about what is truth. Because when ChatGPT pushes out the wrong answer, that's deemed as being the truth, whereas it was the wrong answer.
Right.
And so what was happening was that there was this discussion amongst all the children about, dads were basically being applied to see what the right answer was, but they were saying because ChatGPT, this is the right answer, and of course it's not.
It's not right. No, I mean,
a really interesting physical example or visual example of that is apparently if you ask an AI agent to create you an image of a clock or a watch saying, just after midnight, in fact, any time, it always comes back with a picture of a watch at 10:10 because that's the most attractive look. So almost every picture on the internet is of a watch at 10:10 because it's the most visually balanced look. So no matter what time you ask an AI agent to produce, it always comes back with an image of 10:10. Yeah. And the problem with this, obviously, is that because the nature of how a large language model works, it looks for patterns, doesn't it, in the way things happen. And everything drives you to a particular outcome. And that outcome may or may not be correct.
Yeah. So we have made, so you touch upon several different interesting topics. So let me try to untangle this a little bit. First of all, there's no question that we've made tremendous progress through neural networks in all their incarnations, deep neural networks, convolutional, and all of that. And in the current AI spring is largely based on the advances that we have made through deep neural networks. But as you correctly pointed out, these techniques, no matter how complex they are, they look for patterns, and the world is, you can do a lot by identifying patterns, but there are many times that you don't want. In fact, it is interesting if the search problem is a very good example of that. When I'm searching for something, I'm looking for something very precisely. I want it to be correct, rather than a pattern. Okay. So how, for example, a company like Perplexity, which is using this generative AI in the search problem, how they approach their problem compared to how OpenAI, which has a foundation model, is approaching the problem, is very different, right? There are several commonalities, but the end result is different because the objective is different. So, and this applies not only to problems that can be addressed using text, but also, as you said, to problems that need to be addressed in using multimodal models, images, voice, whatever. So again, we need to be very mindful. The point that we're making, frankly, to our customers is that while there's going to be a need for these general purpose resources, this foundation, these frontier models, as they're also called, if you want to use generative AI effectively in your corporation, in your organization, you really need to be thinking about specializations of models. So we call them XLMs because they might be large language models, but there might be small language models also. I mean, it doesn't mean that you need, and the example that I often use to convey this point is if all your company is doing is providing financial advice, we started this conversation today, you don't need a model that knows Roman history. You don't need a model that understands biotech, right? Because having this model or having a model that has all of these capabilities makes it extremely large, which means extremely expensive to maintain, all of that. So there's no question that there's a need for these general purpose resources in the same way that we have general purpose search resources. But again, it was happening with diagnostic system back in the 80s, with operation research systems and nonlinear regression systems in the early 90s. Here with generative AI, we really need to be thinking about how am I going to use this technology for the problem that I have, and how much baggage, how much do I need to carry forward in order to get me to the right capabilities. And this is something that is just now being understood. So if you look at what Google is doing with DeepMind, they have developed specialized models for biotech. They're now doing research for new drugs. They have developed, you talked about math, they have developed a special model for reasoning around math problems, and it's extremely good. But it's not the same kind of model. It may have the same technology underneath it, but it's not the same model as a foundation model. And I think this type, teasing out these differences will be important for the corporation to understand as they're trying to say, here's my problem, what's the technology that I need to use in order to address it.
We have a comment from the audience. So Adam, welcome. AI is helpful with research and the decrease in the amount of time taken. However, you must invest some time in validating the output, and I think we discussed that. But that ties to a new question on my side about skills and roles that you may want to consider to be successful in an AI implementation in your business.
So I'll go back to Klarna and tie it also to one financial services customer we worked with. So the problem we worked with was how do I accelerate my software development progress? And could I let most of my software engineers go and rely on these kind of systems to generate the software that I need for my corporation? And what we showed in the process of doing that is there might be certain opportunities for reducing your programming staff and making the remaining staff more productive. But you need to worry about two things. You need to worry about who is checking the quality of the output. And to do the right checking, you need more senior people. So who are going to be obviously more expensive. And the second thing you need to worry about is the people who are senior today in your organization, at some point, they're going to leave. They're going to retire. They're going to go to so you need to have a pipeline of people from your junior staff that is becoming more senior, right? So to go back to Adam, to a point that Adam made earlier, you cannot willy-nilly go and say, I'm going to get rid of everybody in my company and replace them with this with agents, no matter what, autonomous agents, no matter what they are, because we're not yet at the stage where we can trust the quality of this output. So you, Bertrand, to answer your question, you really need to have the people with the right expertise who can check the output. These tend to be more senior people, and then, but you also need to create the pipeline of talent that will become senior, and so you will always have in your corporation that body of talent that will make sure that what is being generated is of the right quality, of the right accuracy, and for the right audience, for the audience that you've chosen.
So here's a question. AI is doubling in its capability every year. Let's say probably a bit faster than that, but it's doubling every year. So what you say about me needing to validate the output of what AI provides me with is true today, but it won't be true tomorrow.
Yes.
And this begs a larger question about the role that AI has in society, I think. So when we had the Industrial Revolution, people that used to work the land and the mines and whatever else and do physical work, they had to leave that because one machine could do the job of 100 men. And those people went to work in cerebral intellectual pursuits because that's the bit the machines can't do. So does the advent of AI and the exponential growth of AI capabilities, does that mean that we as humans have to go back to doing things that machines can't do? So creating furniture and whatever. Or does it mean that we all get to live on a desert island where AI goes to work in our place and we don't have to do anything? Because this change is going to happen within our lifetime, isn't it?
I love option 2, by the way.
Yeah, so do I.
In 2019, I gave a talk to the European Union, to a group in the European Union, about this point. What do we do and that, by the way, in 2019, we generative AI had not burst out in the scene, but I was worried because, as you said, whether it is generative AI or discriminative AI, the advances are being made daily. And I said, okay, well, there will come a time that entire parts of the population will not be needed for the services they provide today. And actually, I walked out of that day-long session following my talk completely depressed because I had come to the conclusion that nobody had given any thought to that potential. And today, I will make the same statement, frankly. I mean, we're talking about humanoid robots. We're talking about systems that can program automatically. I mean, a variety of different kind of agents. A couple of months ago, I had a session with Indian public company CEOs who provide, whose companies provide a lot of engineering resources to corporations around the world. And their question was, what are we going to do if our programmers are no longer needed, right? Because we have, and we're talking about millions of people. I mean, this is not like 500 people in some corporation. This may be 20 million, 30 million people. We haven't thought about this problem, frankly. I'm painting with a very broad brush here. I'm sure there are people who are thinking about it. intellectually, but I have not seen the action or even the preparation for action that should be, whether it is at a government level, at a corporate level. We haven't seen that, and I don't think we have any good answers yet.
I have a question for the investor. Because you said earlier that the CEOs and the exec committees you talk to don't really appreciate yet the amount of investment that they need to put into this. So my question is about, are we into, because this is really disruptive, and I think the example you take on coding is a very good one, because I'm almost a daily user of this type of agents, and I'm blown away by what they are able to do. So the point is, there is a big disruption. So are we into the area of return on investment, or are we into the area of it's an enabler, we need to go there regardless of the cost? What is the feeling of your customers around this?
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere different, actually, but I'll answer your question first. So in the case of generative AI, I think the two major, if we can classify the two classes of problems we're looking at is productivity improvement and cost reduction. We have not yet seen, I'm talking about our company, we have not yet seen use cases where it is used as a new revenue stream, right? To add to the revenue streams of a corporation. Now, there are new companies that are being created. Waymo is probably a very good example, where you're using this type of technology to create a new company with a new revenue stream, with a new business model that you didn't have before. But if you look at corporate, we talked about Goldman Sachs earlier, we talked about Klarna, we talked about Unilever, those companies that are applying generative AI, they're doing it for productivity improvement and cost reduction. When Elon Musk talks about Optimus, his humanoid robots coming into the assembly line, or BMW working with Figure to do something similar, it will be strictly for cost reduction and productivity improvement. Right now there is a massive experimentation going on what around use cases where this technology can be applied. And as I said, a lot of times the technology is applied before even the use case is identified. I think we're coming though to the point, and I consider 2025 to be a critical year for that, where many corporations are now starting to ask, how do I go from experimentation to deployment? And that's where they start coming to face with what is going to be both the cost of that deployment, what's going to be the talent that will be required, what's going to be the infrastructure that needs to be put in place. So we work a lot with corporations that are interested in what's broadly called ethical AI, right? So they want to understand, as I go from experimentation to deployment, how do I avoid biases? How can I create systems that explain themselves, that are transparent, and what is the tooling that I need to put in place? Tooling, by the way, could be technology-related tooling, can be organizational tooling, right? What kind of, do I need to have an internal, does my risk assessment committee need to now take an additional role to make sure that this output is ethical? So suppose, for example, you're using a generative AI system to screen prospective employees. And a candidate comes back and says, "Why did you reject me? Can you explain to me why you rejected me?" The system, if you're using a system to do that kind of filtering, you better have a very good explanation of why that decision was reached, right? So this is so all of these are require investments. Right? This is not going to happen for free or automatically. I mean, and I thought the point that you were going to ask me, frankly, was, we have now we have billions being invested in startups and more mature private companies. What are we going to see? What kind of return on investment we're going to see there? And my short answer to that is that we're going to have a lot of roadkill, because right now, there is not only there's a lot of investment in the field for companies that may not be solving a really important problem, even though they're using AI. But there's also a lot of sameness for every subsector where we want to apply, for people rather are applying, entrepreneurs are applying AI. We have tens of competitors. If you look at, you talked earlier about programming assistants. Look at how many, in our database, in our firm's database, we may have 35, 40 startups that are working on developing programming. And each one of them, by the way, has taken serious money in terms of amount. You look at customer support, tens of startups. You look at MLOps, tens of startups. So this will have to, we'll see where it goes. But I think the ROI on that is also going to be an interesting one to follow.
I think we're also seeing with AI, aren't we, where people are coming out and saying, "Hey, this is the new best thing," and the next day, people have actually leapfrogged that, and that's actually now old tech, and it's a new thing, and then the next day there's a new thing, and
right.
If you look at, I've got my name down for the Perplexity web browser purely because I can, because what Perplexity are trying to do is jump over what Google are doing, but Google have got billions of money and resource, so they're obviously not sitting there with their feet up. So it's and the other thing that's interesting is the move from software as a service to service as a software. And OpenAI created that new thing that does your calendar, and it's supposed to be pretty rubbish, but it's version 1. So people are already looking at ways of automating stuff. Adam and I had a meeting with a guy last week, and he said to us, he said, and he's about 29, 30, Adam, and he said, "I'm using AI for all of my internal emails, and I'm not using AI for my external emails." Now, interesting to hear what somebody that age was saying in terms of how they saw AI. Now, I've presented this to loads of people. What do you think? And people have said, "Well, what's the point of having a company if all of the internal emails are AI generated?" And what does he think about the people internally? But this is somebody at that age, and this is what they're thinking of doing with AI. And that's a different change in the way that we work and the different way that we have society.
Actually, I'll tell you, one of the things that I have found now as a venture investor, go ahead, Bertrand.
No, that's fine.
No, he wants to, we need to end the show, but you go ahead.
Okay. One of the most interesting as a venture investor is that we're seeing companies that are startups that promise to achieve a goal with fewer people than we would have thought in previous generations of startups. And all this is due to the use of particularly programming assistants, but also other type of AI tools. We'll see whether that succeeds. But there is that promise which we find interesting.
Evangelos, this has been great. Unfortunately, too short, but
Thank you.
where can people learn more? Where can we get in touch with you?
So they can, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me through that, through our company's website, synapsepartners.co. Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to connect with me. Yeah.
Okay, great. We now have a newsletter where all of these details will be given. By the way, don't miss an episode. Get the show highlights, beyond the show insights, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen, or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of the panelists and to our guest, Evangelos, and to our audience, thank you all and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.